Ahoy there, mates! All aboard! Financial freedom awaits. MyTrade proudly presents the Navigator, the newest, easiest, and brightest fundamental tool from MyTrade's renowned research team. Be guided in your investing voyage. Get the best stock picks, sound long-term strategies, and valuable information about the companies that you're buying. Follow the light. The Navigator. Better your tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Wow, we have a lot of comments as early as I think 11 a.m. Nagre-reply na kayo dun sa aming um, coordinator sa YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. So, guys, have you ever been on a field trip? Aminin man natin or hindi, minsan mas inaabangan pa natin ng mga stopover more than the actual destinations in the itinerary. Tama ba? And besides, ang sarap kayang kumain habang nasa biyahe. We have posted something asking people, bakit kaya drive-thru? Bakit kaya drive-thru yung pinili namin na title? It's because yung in the beginning, the very first outlook for 2021 was titled The Long Road Back. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our live event. For today, this is Drive Through, the last market outlook of Abacus Securities for 2021. Before anything else, let me remind you to please grant StreamYard permission to see your name. Just to click StreamYard link in our caption and register your names before commenting. We appreciate it. So when we flash your name on screen, we'll be able to address you properly. This event is brought to you by MyTrade, the online arm of Abacus Securities. It is also my pleasure to announce that we have been awarded as the best innovative broker by Global Finance. Thank you so much. And it's not gonna happen if not for you guys and not for the our passion to serve every one of you. And also I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your continued support and trust to my trade. Rest assured we will keep on innovating our platform and improve our services. Thank you guys. So shout out muna tayo. I wanna see in the comment section below, comment drive through and then your location. For example, drive through from Zambales. So let me see where are you guys watching us from. If you have friends who are not that familiar with the market but wants to get to know the market and how is it gonna be ahead or on the next year and then on the months to come, tag their names or share this in your wall and make this public so everyone will be shared of the good knowledge that our speakers will be sharing today. Ayan. So we have two speakers. And beforehand, we can have some shout outs. Ayan. So, hi, Sir Zaldi, watching Drive Through from Bacoor City. Who else? For your inspiration, Drive Through from Bicol, Albay. From Popong, Drive Through from Marikina. Wala bang mga overseas dyan? Roel Pratista, drive-through from Saudi Arabia, tama ba? KSA. Sister Rizaldi, thank you so much for watching us. Alam ko busy yan eh. Robert R, drive-through from Ilocos. Hi, Ruel Albert Castro from cyberspace. Masyadong malihim si Castro. Teka. Marami nang umuulit. Alright, so from Tansa, hi Nati, hi Elmer, Philip from Camarines Sur. Thank you so much for watching. Please share us. Nati from Tanza, Cavite. Ayan. Thank you so much. Hi Rai, drive-through from Qatar. Mukhang excited na sila from the looks of it. Thank you for participating. We really, alam nyo guys, I'm really happy to share with you our speakers today. And the first talk is something na matututunan nyo in terms of mind setting. And then the second part will be about the market itself. Syempre, alam na natin that it will be ito yung mga nagsimula ng long road back in the beginning. If you have not attended the long road back and you are tuning into our YouTube channel, you can just look for it. If you are tuning in from Facebook, you can just go to our YouTube channel and type the long road back and you will see the talk there previously. And if you notice, we only have two speakers for today. It's because the third speaker, supposed to be the technical analyst, will be available later tonight in CNN Philippines. So he will be guesting there in the show of Luis Calderon's section. Okay. Ayan. So all right. Grabe, no? October na, ang bilis. And 2 buwan na lang, Pasko na. Sino ba dito nagbibilang ng how many days before Christmas? I remember when we've aired the first Outlook Abacus Securities for 2021 last January, we called it the long road back. And we're able to attend, as mentioned below. If hindi, let just go to our channel and search for it. Pa-comment naman ng #roadtripper kung kasama ka nung nagsimula yung long road back. Ang tagal na pala nating bumabiyahe. And nakapag-maintenance na tayo when we had a pit stop. And tapos nakapag-gas up na din tayo. So ngayon, we will eat. Kain muna tayo. But to keep on moving, hindi na tayo magda-dine in, we will drive through. Once again, welcome everyone to the last market outlook of Abacus Securities for 2021. We have lots of surprises for you. And also later, very engaging and respected speaker in the Philippine financial literacy scene will join us. Ayan. So na-excite na ba kayo? All right. So without further ado, let me introduce. And we are now 359 viewers and counting. Invite niyo family and friends nyo. Di ba pag kumakain naman, nagyayaya kayo? So ikaw ba, madalas ka bang magyaya? Let them know that you are watching something that is relevant in your future, in building your future. Ayan. Lalo na yung mga natatakot, ano bang mangyayari on the next coming days? Pwede pa bang magpunta sa market? Too late ka na ba? Yan, yung mga bagay na yan ang malalaman natin. Yeah, if there's one thing that this pandemic has failed to stop, it's our cravings. Pinagbawal din dine-in for quite some time, di ba? So natigil yung mga food trip. And then when the government said that it's total lockdown, they tried to provide us also with supply. When we were bored at home, we watched Netflix and syempre umu-order din ng Foodpanda or Grab. And when we got sick, pinalalakas tayo ng masustansyang pagkain. So here's the fact. Consumers are expected to continue using takeout and delivery services until quarantine restrictions around the world are totally lifted. Ibig sabihin, yung food business will continue operating and making money. So there's an opportunity in the consumer sector. And that's what Sir Nicky Franco will be talking about today. Interesting, di ba? So grab your notes, make sure that you take down notes to it. But first, we will introduce the very first speaker. Have you heard of the story about the red Ferrari? Ayan. Alam ko marami nang nakaka-guess kung sino yung ating first speaker and we've already posted it. If yes, you probably met our guest speaker either personally or virtually. Some of his famous lines are never let a good crisis go to waste, such as this. If your friends are holding you back, change your friends and fire on all your cylinders. He is the president and CEO of Franco Financials, the biggest distributor of mutual funds in the Philippines, cited by many as one of the most engaging, motivational, and financial speakers today. He is in the same group as Brother Bo Sanchez and Chinky Tan, among others. Also, he is the lead independent director of 2 listed companies, Globe Telecom and Ayala Logistic Holdings Corporation, the independent director of 2 other listed firms, Ayala Land and National Reinsurance Corporation of the Philippines. Last but not the least, our guest is the author of the 2 national best-selling books, Trailblazing Success and Firing on All Cylinders, di ba? Related pa rin sa ating theme today. Without further ado, please welcome with me on screen Mr. Rex Mendoza. Hi, Sir Rex. Nice to see you
Hi,
again.
Gina. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Quite an honor and a privilege.
Yes, sir. So I'm not gonna hold you any longer. Pero if there's one thing from the first talk, from the first talk that you had, and then from then on, di ba nagbabiyahe na tayo? What do you think? What are the changes that you really felt from that beginning of the year to this year bago kita bitawan?
China, parang I tell some friends, no, it's feeling like 2009. Siguro the fact that, this kind of ages me, right? Kind of dates me, pero namin na natin pinagdaan ng crisis eh. Parts of those crises you have gone through. It's just like 1998 and 2009 when, things are beginning to turn around. It's not yet there. We know it's not yet there, but nag-uumpisa na. So it's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting now.
I'm excited to hear your talk today, sir. Title pa lang, nahahype na ako. All right, so I'll leave the floor to Sir Rex. Take it away, Sir Rex.
Yeah, let me share my screen first. As mentioned by China, no, talagang exciting na yung nangyayari sa market. And technically, if you're going to be looking at it, there are silver linings, no? Silver linings that we now see. And it's high time that we probably position ourselves. Now, if you look at my title, asan yung drive-through dyan? Yung thriving in bull and bear markets, problema ba yung market or ikaw? It's almost like the trip that China was saying, di ba? Mapapansin nyo, I'm so sure, lahat tayo may pinagdaan ng outing sa ating mga opisina, di ba? Doon yung makikita yung perspective ng tao. For example, pupunta tayo, like let's say the South, siguro sa mga beaches dyan sa South or maybe sa North, Pangasinan, yung ganyan, or even Baguio, even La Union, or places that we'd like to be with office mates and with friends. There are times when we get into bumpy roads and there are times when we get into smooth roads. Pero doon yung makikita yung tinatawag na perspective ng iba't ibang tao. Some people will always complain about what's happening. Ang tagal naman ng biyahe. Bakit lubak-lubak? Nakakahilo. Puro complaints, hindi ba? And that's the reason why for those people, that trip is long. And it's not just long. It becomes painful. It becomes painful. Pero may mga tao naman, kung mapapansin nyo, may ibang grupo, kung kailan nalulubak, nagtatawanan ba? Para tayong niyuyugyog, di ba? So, parang it's the same experience, two different perspectives. In the end, there are two different experiences and two different people. Di ba? So, parang doon yung makikita, is it the road or is it you? Ganon din po ang markets. Whether we are in bull or bear markets, how are you riding it through? Kasi pag minsan, ang perspective natin nagiging mali, doon tayo siguro magkakaroon ng problema. Kasi I can tell you, I mean, I have been an Abacus client for the longest time. Talagang, medyo hindi ko na sasabihin siguro kung kailan ako nag-umpisa dahil parang masyado tayong magiging Jurassic. But we've been through all of these crisis and people are saying, no sir, iba ito, talaga unprecedented. I will agree. Siguro naman, hindi tayo buhay nung Spanish flu when the last pandemic or global pandemic was experienced. However, there are shades of it that we see in our markets. Ibang kwento lang siya, pandemic siya, hindi siya financial crisis, hindi siya global, hindi siya Asian, talagang iba siya. Medical issue siya eh. Diba? So parang dumating tayo sa 2008 global, 1997 Asian, all financial. Ngayon, pandemic, global pa din. But, see, doon mo makikita yung iba't ibang tao. Now, how do you put yourself, in perspective for the market that you're seeing now? Let me tell you this. For a lot of people, 2020 was a year of frustration and disappointment. 2021, disillusionment. Kasi yung 2020, unexpected. Ang ganda na nung 2018, 2019, all of a sudden, akala natin black swan na yung taal. Biglang, hindi pa pala taal yung problema. Coronavirus pala, mas matindi pa. So, it was really a year of disappointment. Lalo na yung 2021, dahil akala natin it's a year of recovery, tapos all of a sudden, we have two successive ECQs. Di ba? So parang, kailan ba matatapos to? So parang nagkakaroon na ng disillusionment. Now, all of these are negative emotions. Alam nyo, hindi natin makokontrol yung nangyayari sa labas eh. Ang nakokontrol natin yung sarili natin. Okay? Lahat ba ng tao may problema sa pandemic na ito? Lahat ba ng tao puro negative ang experiences sa pandemic na to? I can tell you, quite frankly, I have a lot of friends who are thriving in this pandemic, who are thriving in these markets. Kasi iba yung mindset nila. Wow, bagsak! Time na mag-ipon ako. Time na mag-accumulate ako. Dahil pasasaan din ba naman yan? Babalik yan eh. Babalik yan. Every crisis has a way of coming to pass. And if it does, where does that put you? So, may isang tao nagsasabing, kailan ba tayo magre-recover? Ang tagal naman. Dito naman, wag muna, nag-iipon pa ako eh. So, doon yung makikita, asan ka? So, where's your perspective? How empowered are you? I think that's a basic question now. How empowered are we? So, going back, let me tell you, there are realizations that I have. And some realizations are old and new. Let me be very frank with you. Some of the slides that I'm using today, purposely, isa na to doon, purposely hindi ko binago. Kasi po nakakatuwa eh. You all know I'm in the personal finance advocacy space, and I've been teaching a lot of people all of these behavioral and attitudinal functions that will make us succeed as investors. Ang tagal na nating sinasabi, money is not technical. It's actually behavioral. You really want to do well with money, you have to control your behavior. Yes, we have to learn about financial instruments, we have to learn about investments, we have to learn about markets. But on top of that, we have to make sure that we also discipline ourselves. Let us make sure that we are of the right makeup. Now, ang sinasabi ko, bakit ganon? 1998, 2009 presentations, binunot ko, hindi ko man lang in-adjust. Why? Because again, history has a way of repeating itself. People seldom learn. History has a way of repeating itself. People seldom learn. Bumalik tayo sa 2012. Di ba? Yung mga kaibigan natin, ano sinasabi nun? Sayang, sana pala nag-invest ako. Nag-invest dapat ako noong 2008, 2009. Pero sinasabi nila, 2012, naka-recover na yung market ng malaki. Yan ang typical, two of the most popular words that you hear in investing para sa mga Pinoy. Sayang, sana. Di ba? Ganun lagi. Ngayon, maririnig nyo uli yan. Come 2024, 2025, sayang, sana nag-invest din ako nung coronavirus pandemic. Sana nag-invest din ako nun. Pero hinihintay ng tao, tapos na eh. Di ba? Now we have a chance to go through another crisis. We have another opportunity to survive a crisis. What do we do about it? The control of emotions at times, especially like this, will be more important than technical competence. Yung technical competence, yung fundamental, understanding of investments, sumusunod yan sa emotion eh. Kasi pag takot ka, walang magagawa yung kaalaman mo. Okay? Objectives change with perspectives. Actually, mali. Di ba dapat yung perspective ang nag-change pag nagbago ka ng objective? Pero ang mga tao baliktad. Kung ano yung nangyayaring perspective nila, babaguhin nila yung objective. Ganito yan. Bibili ng stock. Nahulog. Di ba? Ang unang iniisip niya, I want to make a quick buck out of this. Nahulog. Long term na. Nagbabago. Dati, parang sinasabi niya, it's trading. Then all of a sudden, it becomes long term. Di ba? Yun namang long term, nagiging trading dahil biglang umakyat kagad. Do we have that kind of discipline to enjoy the ride, whether bumpy or smooth as they lead us? So parang kailangan niya na isipin natin, what is controllable and what is not? Alam nyo, ang daming controllable sa ating marketplace eh. Pero napakaraming uncontrollable. So when we get to ask ourselves, is it a good time to invest? Should we avoid the market? Ang lagi ko sinasabi, you know what? We don't control the weather. But we are the captain of our ship. We control our ship. Volatility can be your friend if you know what you're doing. Volatility can be your friend if you know what you're doing. So, yung mga sinasabi nilang diversification is overrated, asset allocation doesn't work. Siyempre, temporarily, they don't. Alam naman natin yan, these age-old principles and concepts of investments, there are times when there are blips in the market when they don't become helpful. But patience has to be there. You really have to wait for the things to pan out so that your strategy will eventually work. Kasi some strategies actually don't work in the short run because of all of these black swans. Diba? So, kailangan tingnan natin how we can maintain our outlook. Kasi kung talagang titingin tayo, ano ba talaga yung factors na importante? What are the factors to consider? Your goals, your portfolio, your time horizon, your risk appetite. If I'm investing for my retirement, ang tanong, magre-retire na ba ako? Rex, bumabagsak yung market. Bebenta ko ba to? Bakit magre-retire ka na? Why will you have to sell at a loss if you bought a very good company? If you know that company will survive. And many people know. Kita naman natin kung sino yung malalakas ang balance sheet. Eventually, they will be thriving. Think about the pandemic as a cleansing process also. Ang mahihina will fall on the wayside. So yung mga matitira dyan, yan ang mga matitibay na magte-take advantage when the market turns. And as long as you stick to your risk appetite, then you can ride the excitement. Kasi match na match ka dun sa gusto mong risk na kinuha mo eh. Hindi yung, alam mo pala, risk averse ka kung ano-anong pinasok mo. De parang, alam niyo yun, marami tayong kaibigan ganun eh. Yung takot na takot sa mga multo, pero ang hilig manood ng horror movie. Di ba? Ang hilig manood ng horror movie, di lalo ka matatakot. Di ba? Matatakotin ka pala eh. So kailangan, doon ka na lang sa mga romance movies, rom-com ka na lang, para hindi ka matakot. Di ba? Kailangan, match mo yung psychological makeup mo. Ganun din ang investing. Di ba? Bakit ka kukuha ng mga bagay na hindi mo kakayanin? And I go back to what my brother said. Kasi ang brother ko po, doktor eh. Alam mo, sabi niya, Rex, alam nyo, kayong lahat ng mga investor, sige, galingan nyo, kumita kayo ng malaki. Kasi sa dulo niyan, pag na-stress kayo, sa amin din ang punta ng pera. Sa doktor din daw ang punta ng pera. So much so that, hey, if you want to be comfortable, if you want to be solid in your investment journey, match your risk appetite. Kasi yun ang staying power mo eh. Pag hindi ka masyadong maaantig because you are comfortable in whatever risks you're taking, tapos yung horizon mo nakamatch pa, kayang-kaya mo, may PC ka. Can you just imagine how powerful that can be? That you can make decisions that other people cannot make? Why? Kasi kompleto asset allocation mo. Meron kang pang emergency fund. So, hindi ka kailangan magbenta ng mga assets at the wrong time. So, yung gyrations na yan, down ng 50%, bumalik ng 40 plus, nag-down uli ng 15, umakyat ng 12. Pag ganyan-ganyan yan, hindi natin maalis. This is a ride for the ages. So makikita mo, sumasabay ang emosyon ng tao dyan. Di ba? So from optimism to optimism, you will see euphoria, you will see capitulation and despondency. Now, I always like to go back to one of my idols, yung quotes niya. While nagpapasalamat ako kay China, medyo na-pick up niya yung ibang quotes ko. I get a lot of quotes from other people also. I mean, the real giants, I'd really like to emulate, no? And isa dyan, syempre, John Templeton, one of the pillars of the managed funds industry. Alam mo niya, sabi niya, di ba? Bull markets are born on pessimism. On pessimism. Pag maraming ayaw na ayaw sa market, pag maraming sukang-suka sa market, between capitulation and depression, yan ang pessimism, the height of it. But bull markets grow on skepticism. Medyo nag-turn na ng konti pero hindi pa agreed ang mga tao. Nagdidebate pa rin. Pa-recover na ba tayo o hindi pa? Skepticism. Bulls grow. Now, bulls start to mature on optimism. Pag lahat ng tao agree na recovery na, optimism na yan. Nagmamature na yung bull. And then lastly, bulls die during euphoria. Pag nandyan na yung sobrang, kahit sinong walang naiintindihan, invest na rin. Diba, natatandaan ko nung 1997, one of my good friends said, Rex, alam nyo ba, nag-invest ako sa Ben Press. Sabi ko, talaga? Alam mo ba kung ano negosyo nun? Ano sabi niya? It's a publishing house. Parang narinig niya lang yung word na press, parang akala mo, press publishing na. Mali eh. So doon, kabahan ka na. Pag may mga ganong klaseng tao na naglalagay ng pera sa market, because of euphoria, the bull is about to die. Now, the question is this, kailan ka mag-i-invest? Kailan ka mag-i-invest? Sa pessimism or sa skepticism? Or mag-iintay ka ba ng optimism and euphoria? That's a question that we have to manage. Because, again, we will have to be able to navigate what we call a VUCA world now. Yung tinatawag na Black Swan, hindi na actually Black Swan yun eh. Sobrang dami na nila ngayon eh. Sabay-sabay pa silang lumalabas. Di ba? So parang hindi na sila black swan in the old definition that we knew about it. But this whole VUCA thing is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Sabay-sabay yan tumatama sa markets. And that's the reason why sometimes it becomes too complex. If you're going to be looking at interest rates, talagang ano yan di ba? Medyo ginamit ng gobyerno, ginamit niya yung talagang tinatawag na stimulus spending, it even played the bond market to bring rates down so that businesses can start to recover, can flourish. Pero ngayon, hindi na pala kaya may inflation na So, a little bit, medyo nawawala na yung low interest rate scenario over the short term. So you're probably going to be seeing this curve react very differently moving forward. I'm not saying interest rates will fly, but they will start creeping up. And inflation is also an issue. So ano yung mga investments dapat na tinitingnan natin to capitalize on those situations? Again, guys, whatever's happening to the environment, you cannot control. Not much of it. Hindi ka naman central bank governor, di ba? Pero dapat, pag nakikita mo, nagre-react ka. You're going to be measured based on your reaction. Not on what's happening, but based on the way you react to it. Take a look at the market, for example. Overlay the most closely correlated issue with the market. Nothing's more closely correlated now than the COVID pandemic. Yung pag-announce ng quarantine protocols, once nakirinig nyo ECQ, bumabagsak ang market. Bumababa. Tapos pag nirelax ng konti, MECQ, nagre-recover ng konti. Pag GCQ, tumataas na. And then all of a sudden, another ECQ comes along. But take a look at what has happened 2020, 2021. Very consistent na ganun. Pero pagdating ng August of 2021, the day they announced the ECQ, up yung market. So what am I telling you? The market is now beginning, I'm not saying decoupled na, but it's now beginning to decouple. Because it's now going to try and look at possibilities, baka mamaya yung silver tints nandyan na. And I'll tell you, there is a logic to it. There is a factual backgrounder on that because it's all about mobility. Habang nababaksinate tayo, nagiging mobile ang tao. So for retail, grocery, parks, and transit, makikita nyo, we're back to higher than second quarter levels of this year, which is probably a high before the last ECQ was announced. So makikita nyo, when the mobility goes up right now, then the market confidence can follow. Kasi yan ang medyo deal breaker, di ba? As people cannot go out, cannot dine out, cannot buy a lot of stuff, the consumer, engine is not humming, we will have a problem. Pero alam nyo, di ba, hindi natin maalis. Tinitingnan din dapat natin yung konting technical views yung konting channels. Di ba, dapat makikita mo, tika lang, china-challenge niya from time to time yung bottom, pero nagba-bounce up siya. So parang, I think there's a little bit of resilience, whether you agree with me or not, the market is becoming a little resilient. And the channels even for the year. Di ba, kitang-kita mo, yan, clear na clear yan. But how about what's happening today? Di ba, makikita nyo, binubuhusan siya, pero bago mag-close yung market, aakyat. Pero pag umakyat naman yung market, bubuhusan din, magiging mababa. But the thing is, it's within a major channel. And I guess, all of us are agreed, di ba? Medyo resilient na siya, hindi na siya masyadong naaantig because may mga sumasalubong na on both sides. But what's missing? What's missing is your foreign buying. Diba? The market is dominated by local retail. Kayong mga kliyente ng MyTrade, kayo nagdo-dominate ngayon Diba? But what I'm saying is this. Look at the huge upsurge in 2009 up to 2012. Foreign buying always follows the money. But once they come in very strongly. Look at the last 4 years. The last 4 years, since 2017, di ba? 2017 yung last net foreign buying year. Look at what has happened. Yan ba hindi na babalik? Babalik yan pag may nakita silang maganda sa atin. Pero, hihintayin mo bang bumalik sila dahil oras na bumalik sila, di ba? Prices are going to be very different. And the companies are earning. So cross-section wise of the PSEI, makikita nyo, first and second quarter, maganda eh. We're probably ending the first half at 84%. With more companies hitting expectations and even going beyond expectations. Konti lang yung tinatawag nating missing expectations. But if you look at the new and the old index, kasi alam nyo, nagpalit ng index, kaya medyo mahirap i-project ngayon. So, old and new, makikita nyo, ang magko-contribute talaga are going back to the badly battered. Diba yun ang mainiwasan natin? Let's face it, during the pandemic, we went to what? Technology, telco, we went to retail essentials. Kasi they will survive and maybe thrive within a pandemic. But now that you're turning the corner, sino mga babalik? Now, I will probably tell you there are businesses out there like hospitality, airlines, transportation, that might take a little more time. Pero mayroong mga intermediate businesses that can bounce back pretty strongly. And that's the reason why you're probably going to be looking at property and conglomerates to move a little higher. But I'm going to let Nicky talk about this because siya talaga yung nasa market, siya talaga yung magbibigay sa inyo ng information, research, and data regarding this. But my concern is, again, mindset. My concern is the perspective. And the driver of that, eventually, is the highly correlated COVID infection. Diba kasi nakatutok pa rin tayo dun sa dami ng nai-infect ng COVID. We get jolted when we see 20,000, 18,000, ngayon medyo bumababa, 10,000. Pero kayo imagine, last year, mataas na yung 3 to 4,000 Ngayon parang normal na yung 9 to 10,000. Mababa na yun. Diba? Kasi nakatikim na tayo ng 20,000. But is this going to dissipate? No. With the Delta variant, we'll have more infections. That's par for the course. But clearly sa studies, alam na natin mas contagious si Delta. Pero mas potent ba? Mas pumapatay ba? There is no finding that shows you that. Yun nga lang, may mga kaibigan tayo, may mga malalaking tao na na-infect at namatay recently. So, medyo jolted tayo dun sa idea na, even vaccinated ka pala, delikado ka pa din. Which is true. But if we look at the numbers, that's 0.01%. 0.01%. So parang medyo napakamalas mo naman pag doon ka tinamaan. But my point is this. Ilan ba vaccinated last year? At ilan ang magiging vaccinated this year? Doon pa lang makikita mo dapat nagbabago yung pananaw mo doon. Kasi quite frankly, even if you look at the Delta variant, we all know that the vaccines we have utilized are effective against it. So much so that you can lower the impact of COVID to mild or even asymptomatic level. Diba? So, it's a matter of time, may infect daw lahat tayo. Lahat daw tayo ma-expose. Pero depende sa ating, tolerance, depende sa ating sariling health standing. Kung wala kang comorbidities, you have a very fairly good chance of getting exposed and just brushing it aside. And in the future, scientifically, and it's proven, the virus will also weaken. Kasi alam nyo, it's a matter of scientific development. Viruses have to be weaker. Why? Because they want the host to live. Pag namatay yung host mo, di patay ka din. So, science will tell you, the virus basically will have to be flu-like and will be much like common colds in the future. This is how the variants will go, but they will be more contagious. So they will be spreading a lot faster. Ngayon, ang labanan, vaccinated ka ba? Ang labanan, wala ka bang comorbidity? And for us investors, that's what we want to see. And with the way vaccinations are happening, 650,000 to 700,000 jabs a day, by the end of the year, projection of Ayala Health, 62% are going to be vaccinated. 91% at the very least one dose. So what does that tell you? The last quarter of this year versus the last quarter of last year. Which is going to be better? Last year, we went as high as 70% foot traffic in the malls. Pre-pandemic. 70% of pre-pandemic levels. Ang tanong ko, ilan yung vaccinated nun? Halos wala. By the end of the year, you're looking at Metro Manila to be 90% vaccinated. So how do you think the malls will be by December? Knowing we are Filipinos, knowing Christmas is festive for us. If this is going to happen, let me tell you, things should also change. Yun ang sinasabi ni Ayala Health. Dapat hindi na natin minimeasure ang rise in cases. Kasi yung rise in infections, nakakatakot lang yung number eh. But it doesn't tell you anything. Dapat ang minimeasure daw natin is the hospitalizations and the mortality. Ilan ang na-hospital, ilan ang namamatay. Kasi kailangan, ayaw mo mapuno yung mga hospital eh. So if you notice, early August, may scare ng puno ang mga hospitals. Ngayon, parang Metro Manila, di ba, lumuluwag na eh. Ang problema natin, probinsya. In the US, almost everyone now are leading like normal lives. Kasi kaya ng hospital system nila. Ma-hospital ka, punta ka sa hospital, okay lang. Dito kasi hindi kaya ng hospital system. So nasa labas ka ng hospital or you get rejected. But if we keep it to a certain number that the hospital system can service, then we won't have a problem with our mobility. Plus deaths. Tingnan nyo yung death rate sa probinsya, tingnan nyo yung death rate sa Metro Manila. And tingnan nyo yung death rate ngayon compared to before. That is the kind of measure we need. That is the kind of measure we have to look at. So, ang tanong, are we going to be waiting? Will it pay to wait? Alam nyo, for investors, the responses becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Eventually, you will come back to it. Eventually, you will maybe have a little bit of remorse of what you have sold. Positioning right now, I'm so sure Nicky will tell you that there are stocks, there are issues that are ripe to accumulate. But sometimes doing nothing is a higher risk. There are oftentimes, staying back or avoiding it, that would be the higher level of risk. Sabi ito, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Because, as mentioned, I've been serviced by Abacus for the longest time. And totoo po ito. During the crisis, doon pumapalo yung investment value ko eh. Doon pumapalo kasi doon ka nakaka-pick up ng mura pagdating ng recovery, yun ang kumikita, not in terms of percentages, but in terms of multiples. Ang usapan lang, diversified ka. Ang usapan lang, mahusay yung asset allocation mo. Kasi, unang-una, hindi mo kailangan ibenta. The worst time to sell an investment or any position whatsoever is when you need money. So can you just imagine, if you can put yourself in a situation where you don't need the money, then you have the staying power. When you have the staying power, you can dictate the length of time you can be exposed to risks. When that happens, you are, di ba, the king of your kingdom. Di ba? You can dictate how things can be. So kailangan, ang importante is how sound is that asset allocation program? How diversified are you? Okay? So, again, inputs here, you always have to remember the basics. The basics are always very important. Lalo-lalo na in a time of a pandemic, siguro dapat mas mag-iingat tayo dun sa mga chupita dyan, here and there. Siguro kung maaari lang, ang lalagyan natin ng pera, yung ika nga may fundamentals naman at maganda ang prospects for the future. Why? Kasi pag naipit ka, okay lang. Talaga namang pumuposition ka for, the turnaround or beyond that. There will be such a thing as what? Revenge spending. Di ba? Pag dumating yung revenge spending na yan, sino kaya makikinabang dyan? Guys, that's what I'm saying. We have to be a little bit ahead of the curve. Ahead of the curve. In all honesty, I'll tell you, in 2018, I've told a lot of people, shift some investments abroad. Shift some investments to the US, put more money in technology. That has been quite a correct move to make, especially because nagka-pandemic. Hindi ko pa nga ina-expect na may pandemic eh. But because of the pandemic, all the more, those pieces of advice rung true. Today, it's the other way around. I've been telling people, the US is kind of toppish. Their interest rates will have to start moving up. We've seen the 10-year US Treasury medyo umaakyat na naman. So where will the money be made? Probably not in the mainland anymore. Where will it go? There might be a few emerging markets like the Philippines where the money can go to. So that's the reason why I tell a lot of people, I was doing like what? A bit of accumulation already. Kasi pwede na eh. Hindi na to, for me hindi na to magtatagal. We're looking at 2022 or kahit sabihin mo ng 2023. Because this is money that is set for a different goal. My goal is a little long term. So I can survive the 2 to 3 years kasi planado naman na kaya kong paipit ng 2 to 3 years eh. Yun ang importante dyan eh. Di ba? Parang nasa biyahe ka, ba't ka magre-reklamo? Talagang malayo pa eh. No matter what you do, you're not gonna be in the destination just because sumisigaw ka or galit ka. No. Just enjoy the ride. I always say this. Not everyone who falls on water drowns. The people who cannot hold their heads above water, malulunod yan. But there are people who can tread water. They will survive. Their neck is above water. They can tread it. They will survive. However, there are people who frolic on water. There are people who swim and have fun. So, a problem for one can be an opportunity for another. You put yourself in that position. A position of a problem or a crisis or a position of opportunity. You choose your vantage point. Ito po nakakapagtaka sa maraming Pilipinong investors. Kung kailan masama ang view, doon sila nanonood. Kung saan masama ang view, doon sila manonood. Let me put up an analogy here. Lagi po akong analogy para mas madaling maintindihan kasi. Di ba? Punta ka ng New York, okay? Empire State Building. Bumabayad ka pa para makapunta ka sa top floor para makita mo yung view. Hindi ba? Pagsakay mo ng elevator, sabihin na lang natin, nagkamali, pababa pa pala. Napunta ka sa basement. Doon ka ba maghahanap ng view? Ewan ko ba kung bakit ang mga kababayan natin, panay na panay ang pagmamark to market ng portfolio nila, pagbagsak, parang pulang-pula, lalo nilang tinatakot ang sarili nila. Ito yung mga takot sa multo pero nanonood ng horror movie. Di ba dapat yung vantage point mo, intayin mo? Dapat, pag ganitong madilim, saka ka nagninibol ng investments of companies that are going to be turning around eventually. Companies that have strong balance sheets, that will have great brands, that will have good leaders, eventually they will be coming back and earning the money. There are companies now who are badly battered in terms of price, pero ang totoo, profitable pa sila. Hindi naman sila nalulugi. They're not just as profitable as before, pero profitable pa rin sila. Can you just imagine what will happen when the revenge spending happens, when the revenge spending comes? So, babalik din yung matataas nilang profits. So, hintayin mong umakyat yung elevator sa top floor, saka ka manood ng view. I won't bat an eyelash on this. I mean, you can ask, yan, siguro, pwede naman mag-mention ng names. Yung consultant ko at medyo advisor ko sa Abacus, Mr. Jet Lazaro. I mean, pagbagsak yung market, hindi niya ako makikitang humihingi ng mga pang-analyze para makita ko yung bottom line. Hindi, kumari nga, wag ko nang tingnan dahil baka matakot ako sa sarili ko eh. Dahil nag-accumulate ako when it's a wrong time for many. But I do mark to market when the market recovers. That's where the view is so nice. Doon ako nanonood, doon ako nagsa-sightseeing pag nasa taas na yung market. Ang problema ng Pinoy, magsa-sightseeing ka pag nasa basement eh. So, you're just making yourself feel bad. The market doesn't make you feel bad. You make yourself feel bad with the way you've been reacting to it. Again, behavior over acumen. It is your behavior that will dictate the emotion. It is the emotion that will dictate the confidence. The road to recovery will be a function of confidence and mobility. So nasa sa atin yun. As investors, we dictate that kind of a future. Now, ito po i-share ko sa inyo. Again, halatang halata, lumang slide, hindi ba? Lumang slide yan. It's about the stock market, but I tell people, I use a certain principle. You know, a 3-step principle I often call ABF times 3. ABF times 3. So ano itong ABF times 3? ABF number 1, accept the brutal facts. Okay, we're investors. We are in the market. A pandemic and a crisis like this hits us. The value can go down 50%, 40%. Accept the brutal facts. Don't deny it. It's real. It's there. So, what do you do about it? Kasi alam nyo, ang sinasabi nila, okay? Comfort, happiness, all of these things would be a function of expectations. If there is a mismatch in expectations, you're going to be grueling with pain inside because you're going to be thinking about what you don't have. Yun ang mali dun eh. Yung iniisip mo pa rin na, sayang, sana pala binenta ko. Iisipin nyo, yun ang mindset ng marami. March of 2020, dapat pala binenta ko lahat ng stocks ko, tapos saka ko na lang binili after. Is that realistic? Why will you have to punish yourself for something that you couldn't have done? Why? Accept the brutal facts. These things happen. These things happen. The road to happiness is forged by acceptance. Yun ang maraming problema sa atin. Hindi na-accept eh. Now, let me tell you, this principle holds not just for investing, but for many things. Relationships, marriages. Di ba? Ang dami nagre-reklamo dyan pag, I also do advice for like young couples getting married, about to get married, or early married life. No? So a lot of people get to discuss their issues in front of me. Di ba? Sasabihin ng isa, kasi sir naman talaga eh. Ha? Magtutoothbrush lang. Hindi man lang babalik yung takip ng toothpaste. Question ko simple, parang ilang taon niya nang ginagawa yan? Tagal na, from the very start, kinasal kami, ganyan na yan eh. Oh, nagugulat ka pa. Di ba? Di balik mo na lang yung takip. Walang away. Simpleng-simple, accept the brutal facts. Accept the brutal facts. Di ba? Madali ang solusyon pag alam mo na ina-accept mo yung bagay na yun. Kasi naman sir, dadating sa bahay, magbibihis, hindi man lang ilagay yung damit sa ropero. Kung saan-saan tinatapon. Ganun bang kahirap yun? Pulutin yun, ikaw na lang maglagay sa ropero. Aawayin mo pa eh. Ang tagal niya nang ginagawa yan. Nagugulat ka pa. Di ba? Accept the brutal facts. When you accept them, there is a different perspective that happens. Di ba? Pinakasalan mo yan. Araw-araw, magigising ka. Yan ang mukhang makikita mo. Accept the brutal facts. Di ba? Ganun talaga eh. Now, if you have accepted the brutal facts, what's next? Siyempre, anticipate a brighter future. If you cannot anticipate a brighter future, there is no point being where you are. There is no point being where you are. If you don't expect to recover from markets, kalimutan mo na yan. Huwag ka na mag-invest sa stock market. Alam natin that any drop will be met by a recovery. Matter of time. So you can actually anticipate a brighter future. That's your second ABF. Your third ABF, act with bold faith. Act with bold faith. History repeats itself. People never learn. Okay? Paano ko mababawian ng market na to? Tama. Nalulugi ako. Okay, pagpalagay mo na, may stock dyan. Lugi ako dati, 44. Ngayon, 30s na lang. Di ba? Teka lang. Meron ako nabili niya ng 4 pesos or 5 pesos eh. Mababawian nyo pa ba ako? Because there are times when I have accepted the brutal fact then, I anticipated the brighter future, and when I acted with bold faith, it kind of returned me the favor. That is key, ladies and gentlemen. So, ito sasabihin ko sa inyo, in investing, the key organ in the body is not the brain. It's not even the heart. It's the stomach. Patigasan ng sikmura ito. Ready ka ba? Kasi yung pinakamatigas ng sikmura dito, yun ang magpo-prosper. Think about it. There is no point panicking over market fluctuations. You're gonna lose sleep on something you cannot control. Think about it. It might even be an opportunity for you reacting to daily economic reports. As if ekonomista ka naman, may magagawa ka ba? Daily economic reports will not shape market prices nor your investments. Think about your goals. Think about what to put your money on, asset allocate, and do everything and monitor consistently. Stopping investments during a downturn, yun ang pinakamasama. Natakot ka, umatras ka. Because that's when prices are cheapest. That is when issues are coming out on bargains. Doon ka pahihinto. Di ba? Ang importante sa atin, huwag mong ilagay yung sarili mo sa katatayuan na medyo may peligro. So, if you have emergency funds, if you have money to cushion you over the bad times, then you can deploy extra for investment over the long-term purposes that you have. You try to time the market, very difficult eh. Ako po, I've tried. Siguro kung perfect ako dyan, baka mayaman na ako ngayon. Diba? So, honestly, the guy who always tells me perfect ang timing niya sa market is going to be a liar. I probably wouldn't know of someone who has timed the market perfectly because you don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need to be perfect in that. You can probably attempt to, but as long as you are a consistent investor, you seldom will be wrong. Not maintaining a sound asset allocation system and abandoning your investment strategy. Our investment strategy sometimes don't work over the short term. Let us give it time to prosper. Let us give it time to act. Let us give it time to react. So make sure that hindi tayo pabugso-bugso. Kasi pag pabugso-bugso kayong bumaba, bebenta mo. Pag paakyat na, saka mo bibilhin. You find yourself buying high and selling low. Diba? It would have been different if you just stayed put and average down if you have the capability for it. I'll end this by inviting all of you, shameless plug, China, but we have a YouTube channel as well, much like Abacus, and then we'd like to reach out to people. We'd like to share with them the lessons that we have learned in our journeys, and we want people to know more about other products, about insurance, about other objectives like security, about hospitals, coverage, illness, medical, and all that stuff. How we can probably get into our own program of self-development and growth. So this is a QR code. If you'd want to snapshot or screenshot and go to our channel later on, you can also search for Ramper Financials. And as I've said, there are so many things in there that are market related, but they can also deal with other investments like real estate, mutual funds, as I've mentioned, insurance, both on the non-life and life areas, and medical, and including HMOs. I guess, ladies and gentlemen, that talk of mine, quite short, but I hope you're able to pick up certain nuggets from it, certain learnings and enlightenment that would probably help you in your investment journey. Maraming salamat po, and good afternoon once again.
Ang ganda nun, Sir Rex. Grabe. Hindi ko alam bakit, ano nangyari sa camera ko. Wait lang. Ayan. So, ang ganda nun, Sir. Parang laging merong nababato and laging natatamaan. And, di ba?
I say those things, kasama ako doon. Hanggang ngayon, guilty pa rin tayo.
Alam ko na marami nang nag-aantay, Sir, na nakapagtanong sa inyo. Ayan. So, they are all, I think, inspired. I think, napaka-importante, Sir, na we are reminded, no, as human as we are, kailangan natin ng reminder kasi emotions, ang hirap kontrolin ng emotions talaga eh, and you need to be reminded. And sometimes, meron tayong, alam mo yun, pag nandun na tayo sa point na nakikita na natin na medyo hindi going to the course that we have planned, medyo nagtuturo na tayo. Tapos nagsa-stop na tayo. So nababaliwala yung mga nagiging preparation natin. Ayan, so we are opening the floor to the questions that you have. Si Sir Rex, nako, lagari to. I think talagang pinagbigyan lang tayo nito, and we really appreciate the time that you have spent with us today. Ayan, sige.
China, alam mo naman, malaki yung utang na loob namin. Ramper Financials, we're indebted to Abacus, and it's the whole group, Abacus Financial Group, and then Abacus Securities. You are all friends to us. In fact, family, as I may say. No? So you have made us grow, and sabi ko nga kay Jet once in a while, you also made me rich.
Hi, Sir Jet. Shout out. Ayan. So may mga ibang ang dami kasing mga reaction. So sinasala namin, but one of the things nakakatuwa is from JM Sabia, walang katlos-katlos, palakasan at patigasan ng sikmura.
Let me say this, parang kasi I shared with many people, I have a trading portfolio and I have a core portfolio. Pag sa core portfolio bumili ako, walang katlos yan. Talagang masusi kong pinag-aralan yung kumpanya, I study the fundamentals. Unless there is something major that went wrong, I won't be selling those. Pero sa trading portfolio, dyan ang cut loss. Diba? Dyan ang talagang kailangan, hindi ganun kalalim yung commitment mo, aalis ka talaga kasi short term talaga yan. So, ang problema ng maraming tao, magkahalo yan eh. So, pag naiipit, nagiging long term. Kasi naiipit na eh. Di ba? Kailangan meron kang discipline to delineate which is for trading and which is for core and very long term. Yeah.
Agree. Totoo yan, sir. Kaya nga, dun pa lang sa equities, pwede ka nang mag-diversify into different strategies pa lang, no? Sir, here, sabi ni Laurice Marquez, what stocks for the last quarter of 2021 we should look out for in your personal opinion? Any insight na you also personally looking at?
Thank you, China. That's a great question, kasi I feel medyo yun nga yung mga tinayaan natin early part of the pandemic, no? What we call the resilient stocks. As I've said, technology, telco, essential retail. These are the industries, the sectors that did well because of the pandemic, diba? Let's face it. I mean, GCash with Globe, all of the revenues that's coming from there, talaga namang nag-thrive sila. But as the pandemic is now turning for the better, now we're seeing what we call silver linings on our fight against COVID. Alam na natin na by 2022, whether it's the first quarter or the second quarter, we will get to hit herd immunity. So dapat tinitingnan na natin ano yung badly battered, ano yung pinakamatindi yung tama. Diba? And that's the reason why I like your theme, drive-through. I like the consumer side, China. Kasi I'm sure sasabihin ito I don't want to preempt whatever si Nicky will be sharing, but all I'm saying is, yan yung mga, kumpanya, yan yung mga produkto na babalik with vengeance, no? With vengeance yan. I mean, how many of you are raring to go back and eat at a restaurant? Di ba? Parang lahat yan, kung payagan ka lang ngayon, pupunta ka na eh. Di ba? So, can you just imagine by next year, yung 2 taon nating hindi tayo nakalabas. Di ba? Babawiin natin yan. Yung dati kumakain ka sa labas ng once a week, magiging twice or thrice a week na yan eh. So, kailangan makita mo, these are the stocks that will be coming back. So, talagang sa akin, consumer is going to be one. Second, property also. If you remember, all of these property companies, Mega World, RLC, Ali, lahat yan, halos diniscount natin ang mall operation. In the past, mall operations account for much of their cash flows. Tapos all of a sudden, naging negative cash flow sila because of the pandemic. Can you imagine if the economy opens up, tapos yung mga tao bumalik sa mall? So yung zero discounted valuation natin, babalik yun eh. So you will see these property companies also going to be recovering. And because the breadth of market will always be captured by conglomerates, favorite ko din ang conglomerates. Kasi, di ba, syempre, a rising tide actually lifts everyone. So parang yung mga nakataya sa lahat, like the GT Cups of the world, the Ayala Corps of the world, yan yung yung mga JG Summit, may pag-aasang makarecover yung mga yan, 'di ba? So yun maybe that's the answer that I have to Laurice's question.
Ayan, ang haba na naging answer sa ni Sir. Dapat Laurice, you take note of that. Ayan. So from Sir Zaldi, question for Sir Rex. What's your view on the global debt crisis assumed to happen in 3 to 5 years time?
Ayan, maganda yan. We're projecting it because we'd want central banks, we'd want banks and markets to heed the warnings. I'm saying it's not going to be 100% about to happen kasi alam naman natin times are different. I'll tell you that times are different. In 1997, even in 2008, we have largely weaker banks capitalization-wise. So, medyo weak sila. So, pag nag-stress test ka, maraming hindi papasa. Number 2, many of these banks also threw risk management out the window. Talagang nagpalaki sila ng kanilang loans base and that can actually be a risk situation, no? So pag yan ang tinamaan ng tinatawag nating debt crisis, sweep yan, di ba? But now, things are totally different because people now are seeing this and it can unfold. Even the metro banks, even the BPIs, nagka-calibrate sila ng risk appetite. So they're not throwing risk management out the window. They've been going through the right compliance and governance process for the loan releases that they have. Can you imagine, saan ka nakakita ng crisis? Di ba? Ngayon, crisis pa. Na pati yung mga malalaking bangko nagdidividendo pa. So what does that tell you? They have required capital, and more than that, because they can share part of it out. Kasi kung talagang pandemic and crisis talaga yan, they will hold on to their cash. They will not give it away. So 3 years from now, I think they're better and more resilient than before. So again, country to country, financial system to financial system, meron talagang mga overexposure. At ang masasabi ko lang, we're not at that level like many of them, like siguro China and the US. But the Philippines, hindi masyado kasi talaga namang medyo nahuli din tayo. Again, yun din naman ang advantage ng being a laggard. Hindi rin tayo nag-grow briskly like they did during these last 3 to 4 years.
Thank you, sir. Sir Zaldi, thank you for the question. Next is from Manuel Pons. Sir, advisable po ba mag-set separate broker for 2 portfolio, core and trade? Oh, this is a fair question to ask.
It's a fair question. Again, to each his own comfort level. But let me tell you my approach, di ba? Ako, hindi naman natin pwedeng bulahin ng mga tao dito. Pwede nilang checkin yung portfolio ko, nandyan, di ba? Ako, di ba? Yung naka-jet yun ang core. Hindi yan halos gumagalaw. Pag ano yun, bili lang ng bili yun, di ba? Pero may trading ako, yun ang nasa my trade. Ako yun, di ba? Ako yung naglalaro doon, di ba? So, yun ang medyo mas malikot na portfolio. Pero, again, it's not as serious as my core. Kasi, alam nyo, let's be fair and honest about it. Even if I'm Rex Mendoza and I've had decades of experience in trading, decades of experience in investing, kailangan mo pa rin ng konsyensya. Kailangan mo nang may hihila sa'yo, may babatok sa'yo. Kung si Jet has done that many times for me. Na, he kind of puts me in place at times. You can get overexcited or you can get overly depressed. Iba pa rin yung merong kang objective person. Kasi let me tell you this because I've worked for many corporates as well. And you know that. I've been CEO of an insurance company. Pag hindi mo pera, mas objective ka eh. Di ba? Pag consultant ka, objective ka eh. Pero pag pera mo, emotional ka. Kaya yung mga CFO, ang gagaling nila pag pera ng kumpanya. Pero pag sarili nilang pera, lugi yun. Diba? Kasi walang greed, walang fear doon sa tinatawag na corporate platform. Kasi objective ka doon eh. Very objective ka eh. Pero pagdating sa personal, di ba, nandun yung medyo aakyat pa to. Parang sayang naman yung kita. Di ba? May greed and fear na papasok. And then those emotions can get the best of you. So para sa akin, it's not a broker relationship. It's the arrangement. Okay, so I'm keeping it with one broker, but I have 2 different arrangements. For my regular portfolio, meron akong stockbroker na naka-assign sa akin. Okay? But for my trading and yung mga, actually, ayaw kong pakita kay Jet yun paminsan-minsan dahil talagang ang daming maling ginawa doon, di ba? Nakakahiya. But that's where it is. So parang ganun. Ganun siya.
Yan. So, for the last question, si Sir will be needing to attend to something as well. So we'll grant the last question for today. Elmer Zabada, thank you, Boss Rex. There's a scare in the U.S. market for another market crash. How will this impact our local equity market?
Okay, there is it is real. First, I'll have to mention, Elmer, tama ka. I mean, lahat ng researches na nadaanan ko, private banks, lahat ng mga analysts, may sinasabing ganyan. And for most part, it can be real. Kasi talaga naman, let's face it, tumakbo yung market nila eh. Talagang tumakbo and parang halos all-time high lahat. Diba? So, let's call it a crash. Nag-crash siya. Pagpalagay mo ng what? 40-50%. Doon tayo galing eh. Diba? Tayo, hindi pa tayo nag-all-time high. Ang layo pa natin. Isipin mo, nasa 7,000 pa lang tayo eh, 'di ba? So we're not even recovered yet. So I'm not so scared that whatever happens there will hit us in a worse way like we were hit in March of 2020. Kasi hindi pa tayo umaabante. Para doon sa mga umabante na, then for them, it's a good correction. It's a crash that would probably be logical to happen. But for us, hindi pa eh. Wala pa nga tayong premium on hope or optimism in our market. So palagay ko, kung tatamaan man tayo, it's more like a liquidity issue. It's not gonna be a major one like what has happened last year or maybe in 2008. Pero 2008 can be a good glimpse of it. Kung mapapansin nyo, unlike 97, in 2008, we weren't hit that much. And we recovered very quickly. Diba? Compared to 97, 97 mas matagal yung recovery at mas malalim yung tama. Kasi structural ang problema. Ngayon wala tayong structural na problema. Not as much as others. Ang ano lang natin siguro debt level of the Philippine government, not of our private sector.
Thank you, sir. Ako gusto ko magtanong sa inyo. This is a personal question that I want to address. Can also be an imparting words for the audience today. If there's one thing or lesson that you have to remind yourself every single day or every time the market is not doing well, what is it? And how do you remind yourself of that?
Okay. Sa akin, China, very important that investment is a continuous process. Investing is a continuous process. So dapat, hindi mo ino-overlay yung investing mo dun sa nangyayari sa market. Sabi ko nga, dapat ang problema mo, deployment. Dapat, kunyari, when you planned out this year, every quarter or every month, maglalagay ka. Diba? Now, if you buy and sell and trade in between, fine. Pero yung portfolio mo, dapat mag-infuse ka within a given year. And it has to be continuous. Whether umakyat or bumaba yung market, there has to be continuous deployment. Now, a matter of timing, siguro, susundin ko din yung mga technical analyst ni Abacus, tinatanong ko minsan si Jet, ano yung reading ng house? Kasi, importante din for timing purposes. But that doesn't mean na magtatagal ako at hindi ko ilalagay. Kasi it's continuous eh. Ang labanan dito is, I have certain goals for the future. And to hit my goals, it's not about earning money. It's also about setting aside the money. Alam nyo, kaya maraming Pilipino kailangan yung yield 20%, 25%. Kasi ang konti kasi nang tinatabi yung pera. Yun ang malaking problema natin. Magtabi kayo ng malaki so that the yield you need would probably be 10 to 15. That's enough. Yung 10 to 15, malaki yun ha. Pero kung continuous kayo naglagay ng pera, I am so sure you're going to be, at a very luxurious position maybe about 5 to 10 years from now. I guess I wish everyone all the very best in their investment journey. I wish they can join us in our YouTube channel. Iniimbitahan ko sila. And again, nagpapasalamat ako for the opportunity for making me a part of your drive-thru. China, maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Sir Rex. Sana mauulit, sir. And with that, thank you. Alam ko na maraming natutunan ang ating mga audience today. And, I was also listening in the background and napapariak ako doon sa mga naririnig ko. I'm telling you, it's not the first time that I've heard these things. He keeps on reminding us to do that. And for those people who are asking if there's a replay, yes, there will be a replay on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And then every time that you want to replay or go back to the previous outlook, you can do so. All right. So, and thank you so much for staying with us. We're currently 678 viewers. And alam nyo na kung sino ang susunod. Ayan. Ano na ba? Excited na ba tayo? Ayan, yung mga tao. Thank you so much for staying. John Mark says, thank you, Sir Rex. All right, kung nagustuhan nyo, ito na, we will go through this. And the very reason why we named our segment or this particular outlook, drive-through, is because Sir Nicky wants to concentrate on a certain sector for a particular reason. All right, so i-introduce ko siya kasi kahit alam nyo na. But if you are just new to this channel and you haven't heard of Sir Nicky, you can go on Twitter and look for HOR102 and follow him. Aside from being a certified public accountant, he is actually one of the first few CFA or Chartered Financial Analyst in the Philippines. He became a full-fledged CFA in 2000. 6 years later, he was already recognized by Forbes magazine as one of the top 10 best stock pickers in Asia, ranking at number 5. It is my pleasure and honor to present to you the head of research of Abacus Securities, director of the online trading arm MyTrade, Sir Nicky. Hello, Sir Nicky.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Sir, na-miss nyo ba sila?
Of course, of course. I always look forward to sharing our company views to our clients and even non-clients as well.
Ayan. So, sir, I'll give you the floor and I'll share the screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And of course, thank you to Sir Rex. It's always a challenge following him as a speaker because he's very animated, very inspiring. But I'll definitely do my best to hold up my end of the presentation. And I'd like to say, first of all, that I agree with many of the things that Sir Rex mentioned, specifically on it's good to always set aside money every month or every few months to invest in the market. I agree that the market is showing signs of resilience. And this is why I want to focus on the consumer sector for today's presentation. Because, as you probably know, consumer spending accounts for 2/3 or even 70% of country's GDP. And I think it's an exciting time to start investing or start accumulating in consumer names right now because we expect that the consumer sector will be the one to lead the market's recovery in the next 12 to 18 months. So before I begin the presentation proper, let's go to the next slide. Sorry, next slide, please. Okay, many of you have probably read this quote from Warren Buffett before. The best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. The more you learn, the more you'll learn. So again, I want to thank you for joining us here because by doing so, you're showing that you do want to learn, you do want to invest in yourself, and you do care about your future. Okay, next slide, please. We will begin the discussion proper by discussing the factors that we believe will influence the consumer sector over the next 12 to 18 months. First of all, commodities have been surging over the past year. What people are calling an everything shortage. Global food prices are actually at a 10-year high right now, and this is because of higher demand as the global economy has reopened. There are also parts of the world that have been affected by severe weather. There's a severe drought in Western US right now. Crops in Brazil have been affected by frost. Brazil accounts for a major portion of exports, global exports for things such as sugar, coffee, and others. Meanwhile, you can see in the chart there that oil prices are at 100% growth over the past year. And this is partly because of China's diplomatic or political rows with Australia. And because of this, China has had to source its coal from other countries. And instead of getting it quicker and faster from Australia, they've had to search high and low for sources of coal. And this is why there's a shortage right now of electricity in China, and this is impacting global supply chains for a lot of different things. So we expect that food inflation will drag on consumer spending going forward. Next slide, please. By the way, I'll try to go through these slides quicker than usual because I think it's important to set aside a longer time for Q&A. Okay, this is a chart that shows shipping costs. Shipping costs, spot prices of shipping one 40-foot container from one end of the world to the other. So this shows the cost of shipping a 40-foot container from China to LA and vice versa, or from China to Rotterdam in Europe, or vice versa. There have been a series of unfortunate events. We all know that the Ever Given was stuck in the Suez Canal for almost a week. There have been port shutdowns worldwide, and there's a container shortage going on right now. And this has all contributed to the fact that shipping one container halfway around the world has quadrupled in price over the past year or so. The global shipping industry is also hurting from the lack of seafarers. This is one consequence of the Philippines having one of the worst outbreaks of COVID and one of the slowest vaccination rates around the world. This has led to seafarers not being able to go back to their jobs. And because there are fewer seafarers to man the ships, there are fewer ships to go around and to deliver shipping containers globally. Now, aside from the fact that shipping containers from China to LA has gone up, shipping containers from China to Southeast Asia have actually gone up much more. They're up more than 500% over the past year. And this is why you've probably seen in the news that local companies are claiming that there's a collusion between shipping companies of fixing prices for shipping their containers. So that shows the extent of the problem for shipping right now. And this will eventually feed through consumer prices. Next slide. So because of the data that we've shown in the previous two slides, we believe that inflation will remain sticky over the course of the next 6 months at least. It is definitely not transitory. And one of the other reasons that we believe so is that energy costs have been going up. As I said, LPG prices may jump further, especially if it will be a colder than usual winter in Europe and China. Natural gas prices in China, the US, and Europe have gone up so much that governments there are afraid that it will be a very bleak winter for many of their citizens. Despite this, despite the fact that inflation will remain elevated, we don't believe that BSP will tinker with monetary policy in the near term. They're definitely not going to raise rates because the economy is still weak, but we don't think that they'll be able to loosen monetary policy further because real interest rates at the moment are already deeply negative. Next slide, please. The other thing is that wages have been quite stagnant. The minimum wage for NCR was last raised in 2018. And based on what we've seen, no region has seen an adjustment since 2019. So the higher cost of basic goods has eroded the buying power, the purchasing power of many citizens by at least 9% to 10%. This has been partially offset by improving labor data. As you can see in the chart, there are most months in the past year have shown that there are more employed individuals compared to last year, definitely, and even through most of 2019. So while lower end consumers are scrimping right now, we believe that eventually this will improve. Next slide, please. Now, for positive for the positive factors, as Sir Rex mentioned earlier, mobility is one of the things that we should be looking at. And as you can see in the chart there, based on the baseline from last year, it has shown continuous improvement since then. We had a brief dip in August, but we have reversed most of that already. And most of the mobility indicators show that we are near or at the levels prior to the last ECQ. And we believe that because of the continuous decline in COVID cases, then further mobility improvements are likely over the next month or so. So there's still a long road ahead, actually, and most of our indicators are lagging compared to our peers. But the direction is positive, and we believe that like Sir Rex does, that it will be much better 6 months, 12 months from now. Next slide, please. Now on OFW remittances, as you can see in the chart, there in the middle part of the chart, you can see there that OFW remittances in peso terms were deeply negative for many months of the past year. But in the last 4 months, we've seen OFW remittances in peso terms move back up into positive territory. And because of the peso's depreciation or continued depreciation, we believe that this will remain in positive territory moving forward. Another factor for this one is that wages in the US are rising at the fastest clip in a long time. You have probably seen news that there are actually more jobs available today in the US than there are applicants for those jobs. So the positive growth in OFW remittances will make consumer spending steady over the next few quarters. Next slide, please. Next slide. Sorry. Next slide, please. Hang on a moment. I think we have a problem with the connection. Okay. As we all know, 2022 elections are coming up in about 7 months. And as you can see in the chart there, GDP usually peaks at around the time of the presidential elections, except for 1998. As you probably know, the economy was badly affected by the Asian financial crisis, which started in 1997 and extended through most of 1998. So there wasn't a bump in GDP in 1998 because of this. the BSP recently said that the effect of elections on GDP has diminished over time, but we still expect a bump for the next elections. BSP Governor Jokno, I think, said that there's probably going to be a 0.5% bump in GDP for next year. We expect that there will be a bigger impact if COMELEC pushes for a 2-day election, so that they will be able to adhere to strict health protocols during the elections. Meanwhile, we believe that mobile wallets, the adoption of mobile wallets, might make it easier for cash to flow during the elections. So this will be generally positive for food and liquor companies next year, at least the first half of next year. Next slide, please. In terms of vaccination, Sir Rex had data of his own. We would like to say that according to the IATF, 100 million vaccine doses are actually expected this month. So on our end, we expect that more than 75% of the National Capital Region and more than 50% of nearby provinces target populations will be inoculated by year end. When we say target populations, this means 12 years old and up. Unfortunately, there are still significant pockets of the population that are vaccine hesitant. I think Valenzuela was one of those cities who said that there are fewer and fewer people who are coming forth to get vaccinated because there's still a lot of vaccine hesitancy. So in our view, herd immunity expectations should be tempered because of this. And we've also seen that even in countries where a large part of the population has already been fully inoculated, the Delta variant has spread quite fast and quite widely among the populations. Even Singapore, I think the other day, reported highest number of cases ever. Of course, the good thing is that vaccines work. They do help relieve the symptoms. They do help people stay out of the hospitals. So if you still haven't gotten vaccinated, please do so. Meanwhile, the average daily doses given has fallen to about 387,000 per day. This has slowed down significantly from a peak of more than 500,000 per day earlier this year. And this is why we're still hopeful, but it looks like the target for herd immunity has to be taken with a grain of salt. We're still going to be much better off next year compared to this year, and especially 2020. But I think expectations on herd immunity really have to be tempered. Next slide, please. I'd like to spend a little more time on this now, demographic dividend. I think this topic was in vogue a few years ago. Basically, it has now been relatively forgotten. And the demographic dividend states that as more of the population, a greater percentage of the population moves into the labor force, then this will significantly increase GDP growth for the country involved. And for the Philippines, we're beginning to, or we have just entered that demographic window, and we will see the effects of this demographic dividend play out over a long period of time. So this chart shows the dark green line in this chart shows the labor force, while the light green one shows the age dependency ratio. Just a moment. So the age dependency ratio means that a falling age dependency ratio means that every person in the labor force is supporting fewer and fewer dependents. So by 2030, in our estimation, there's going to be a potentially huge jump in discretionary spending. Meanwhile, the Philippines' fertility rate has been dropping also, and this will further accelerate the drop in the age dependency ratio. The next slide is still on the demographic dividend, and I want to show this because it's quite significant. As you can see in the bottom part of that chart, the population pyramid of the Philippines has begun to invert already. Those that are ages 0 to 4 are now a smaller percentage of the population compared to those 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19. And again, this is also one factor that will accelerate the drop in the age dependency ratio. This is also a factor of the fertility rate. And over time, this population pyramid will flatten out or will become relatively straight. And when that happens, again, this people in the labor force will have a lot more money to spend on wants rather than needs. So if you're a long-term investor and you believe in this concept of a demographic dividend, then you will go for companies that will benefit more from discretionary spending. Next slide, please. We've also seen a huge change in consumer behavior over the past year and a half, or over the past 2 years. There have been a lot of disruptive technologies or apps like e-wallets, online shopping sites like Shopee, food delivery platforms like GrabFood. Digital banking is coming. So all of these technology and apps have changed consumer behavior, and we believe that consumer behavior has changed for the better and for the long term. Meanwhile, we also believe that work from home is here to stay, and this is probably one of the few areas where I would deviate from Sir Rex. Personally, I believe that the property sector will take longer to recover compared to the other sectors, because just imagine, for example, the IT industry or the call center industry is petitioning the government to allow the majority of their workers to work from home on a permanent basis. The entire BPO industry employs 1.3 to 1.4 million people. Just imagine if 20-30% of those workers were to work permanently from home, then this will reduce by a significant factor the office space needed by these companies, by these BPO companies. The Department of Trade and Industry has apparently looked with favor on this petition. They probably won't allow 100% work from home or even 50% from home. But as I said, even if it's 30% or 20% or 40%, then this is going to have a significant long-term impact on property companies. Meanwhile, the spending surveys have showed that consumers are going online more, and that this trend will continue to accelerate moving forward. And lastly, the changes are being ingrained because people are realizing that with these apps or with all these technologies, they're saving a commodity. They're saving on a commodity that's the most important, which is time. So when you save time by using mobile banking apps, when you save time by doing your groceries online, or watching Netflix instead of going to the movie theater, then that gives consumers a lot more flexibility with what they want to do with their lives. It gives them more time for their wants, instead of doing chores like going to the bank or doing groceries. So these changes are being ingrained, and these changes are going to stick. And that's why we believe that these changes in consumer behavior have to be taken into account when you choose the stocks that you're going to invest in. Next slide, please. Now, this slide is about the revenge spending. It's what Sir Rex was mentioning earlier. We agree that there is indeed pent-up demand. We saw some numbers showing that the savings rate actually increased despite the pandemic last year, which is kind of surprising given that a lot of people were laid off or were out of work for a number of months. But we traced the source of the savings, and we believe that most of it was because of the drop in income tax rates. So the income classes that will benefit most from this accumulated savings are the A and B class. So when you look for companies that are going to benefit from this, then you should probably look at those into travel and into leisure, and into consumer durables and consumer discretionary. These are the companies that will whose services and products people will be patronizing more moving forward. Next slide, please. Excuse me. Now we look at each of the subgroups within the consumer sector. First, on restaurants. In the near term, we're still quite underweight on restaurants, and this is related to the surge in commodities that I discussed earlier. Because of the surge in commodities like wheat, energy, oil prices, coffee, and the rest, then this will definitely affect the margins of restaurants. As you can see in the chart, margins today are still well below that compared to 2019, before the pandemic. And because of the rising cost of commodities, the rising cost of inputs, then this will continue to drag on the margins of these companies. And like I said earlier, since most minimum wage workers have not had salary adjustment for at least 2 years, and as much as 3 years already, then the odds of a wage hike by next year, or within the next 6 months even, is growing more and more. And if the minimum wage does increase, and it will probably increase by a significant figure, then this will be a bigger drag on restaurant operations. Now, restaurants have been forced to embrace delivery apps due to stiff competition, but this is also eating into their margins because they pay a portion of the price to these food delivery apps. We also believe that mobility restrictions are unlikely to be fully rolled back anytime soon. So restaurants through most of next year will still probably have to operate at a fraction of their capacity. Now, our top pick for this subgroup, it says there to be revealed. I don't want to preempt our Corfin group, no, but we are working on something. We are working on a potential IPO of a restaurant company that has actually been doing well despite the pandemic, and it is eating into the market shares of some of these restaurants. So we're hoping that the IPO gets green lighted, and we will eventually discuss this moving forward. Next slide, please. Moving on to food and beverage, we're also underweight. And this is because of the large impact of Monde and URC. As you can see there, Monde is at 34.4 times forward PE, and it is at such a large premium to the rest of its to its peers, which we believe is unwarranted. Investors and institutions are playing up corn and alternative meats business, but we believe that the decline in the market share of corn is unlikely to be reversed anytime soon. And personally, I would actually not be surprised if corn becomes dethroned as the #1 brand in the UK within the next 5 years. So we're not as bullish on corn as our peers in the industry, and we are underweight on Monde actually, and this significantly affects our overall rating for this subgroup. Meanwhile, commodities, energy costs are also going to weigh significantly on the margins and profitability of some of these companies. Now, except for FB, San Miguel Food, and DNL, tailwind from the pandemic will fade, especially as mobility improves going into next year. FB should benefit because of beer. Most beer consumption, or a huge chunk of beer consumption, is on premises. So once restaurants and bars and the like begin to reopen, then SMFB or FB should benefit more from the reopening compared to the other companies in this subgroup. DNL as well, it supplies fast food restaurants. So if those restaurants do a lot more business going into next year, then DNL should benefit. Our top pick for this subgroup is DNL. As you can see there, it's tied with CNPF for the lowest PE within this subgroup. But like I said, CNPF is probably going to see tailwinds from the pandemic fade over next year, while DNL should benefit from benefit more from the economy's reopening. Next slide, please. Now, for grocery stocks, we're overweight. And our top pick is Pure Gold. You can see in this chart there. You can see in the chart that the penetration of modern retail is going to continue to increase over the next 5 years, or until 2025 at least. So this will provide a lot more opportunity for grocery retailers to grow their business. It is also ripe for disruption, and digital growth is key. And that's why we like the IPO of All Day, which we will discuss more later. So we believe that pure grocery plays will continue to outperform moving forward, because their businesses are really much more simple compared to company like Robinson's Retail, wherein the factors are opposite each other. Now, our topic for this subgroup is Pure Gold, but like I said, we also like All Day's IPO. Again, we will discuss that in a little bit. Next slide, please. Go back one slide. We skipped one slide. Go back. There, liquor. We're overweight on liquor, and our topic is GSMI, simply because of the deep discount that GSMI is that GSMI has right now compared to its peers. The domestic reopening will be a mixed bag for these companies. A lot of liquor is actually consumed off premises now. But for Keeper, a lot of its products or a lot of its sales are tied to on-premise activity. So it's going to be a mixed bag for these companies. Meanwhile, consumers are showing an increasing trend toward premiumization, which will be positive for margins and earnings, especially if these companies can come up with new products that will cater to the changing tastes of consumers. Now, as you can see there in the chart, the revenue growth of Keeper, it's not so obvious, no? Because it's the smallest bar there, or the shortest bar there. But the compounded annual growth rate for Keeper is much higher compared to its peers, except probably for GSMI. Keeper has been benefiting the most actually from premiumization, and this is because its line of brandy products is priced very competitively compared to Emperador, but that is benefiting the company in terms of margins and profits. We'll also discuss Keeper in a little bit. Next slide, please. Now, on home improvement, there are of course, only two stocks here. We're neutral right now on this sector because Wilcon is very richly valued right now. As you can see there in the chart, Wilcon has one of the slowest profit growth rates moving forward, and yet it has the second highest forward PE. Excuse me. So, but then again, we do like the home improvement space. As some of you have probably heard me say before, this is one subgroup, or this is one industry that will benefit most from the country's demographic dividend, because household formation is growing much faster compared to overall population growth. As I showed earlier, the country's population pyramid has begun to invert, but those in their 20s and 30s are getting married and venturing out on their own, establishing their own homes. So the number of households being formed today is about 50% higher compared to the growth in the population. So this is an advantage for home improvement companies. And this is why we've liked Wilcon ever since it first listed. The only problem we have right now is really that it's too richly valued, and we prefer home for this space. Next slide, please. Technically speaking, malls are not within the consumer sector. It's really part of the property sector now. But I want to discuss this because it has relevance to the consumer sector. We believe that it will slowly lose prominence as the center of leisure. As I mentioned earlier, consumer behavior is changing. More people are spending time at home streaming rather than going to movie theaters. more and more people are ordering in rather than going out to eat. The restaurant industry, as a result, is shifting towards cloud kitchens rather than opening more stores, more branches. They're still opening branches, but their focus right now is really establishing cloud kitchens in order for them to cater more to online orders or orders from food delivery apps. So all of these will contribute to what we believe will be the slow deterioration of the prominence of malls as the center of Filipinos' lives. So whereas before people had to go to the mall for a lot of different things, but that is now changing, and we believe that vacancy rates for malls will be higher than before, and they will slowly creep up over time as people change their consumer behavior, change their their habits. Next slide, please. Just to summarize everything, all of this I've mentioned already, except probably for our view that the country should be on track to vaccinate about 80% of the target population by or around mid-2022. But this may still slide because, as I mentioned, vaccination rates or the number of daily doses administered has been steadily declining. We do like the consumer sector for the next 6 to 12 months, and we believe that spending will improve over this period of time. Next, Filipino spending is increasingly being channeled online, and it is becoming ingrained. Next is that time is the only commodity that we can't get more of. So the time-saving apps are key to changing behavior of consumers. Lastly, because of the demographic dividend, discretionary spending will increasingly extend over this decade, and it will be increasingly focused on travel, leisure, consumer durables, and home improvement. These are the areas that are going to benefit most. So for our recommendations, next slide, please. Again, we're overweight on the consumer sector. We believe that it is the exciting, the really exciting space to be for the next 12 months and beyond. Wilcon has already been added to the index. We believe that Monde will most likely be added to the index as well by February. So a bigger portion of the index will be directly related to the consumer sector, which is as it should be, because like I said, 70% of GDP is consumer spending. So it just makes sense for consumer companies to make more, to be represented more in the PSE index. Like Sir Rex said, stay invested in the market. Things are going to improve over the next 12 months. And the market has generally risen during and after each presidential election season. We prefer discretionary over staples. And you can see there are recommendations. We're overweight on DNL, Home, Pure Gold, RHI, and FB. We're underweight on Monde and restaurants, and we're neutral on the rest, except for GSMI, where we have a trading buy. Lastly, we do recommend subscribing to All Day and Keeper Holdings follow-on offering. For that, we discuss first All Day on the next slide. You can see here in the chart that online sales as a percentage of total as of the third quarter for All Day is 5%. This is much higher compared to its peers. The only exception is Home, which is a sister company, and Home's online sales as a percentage of total is 10%. So it looks like a competitive advantage for these Villar companies. And also one of the things that we like for All Day, that's young, it's in its hyper growth stage. So All Day has a very long runway for growth. We believe also that the company's mid-premium branding is the right way to go, and it's probably going to be key in the long run. So again, subscribe for All Day. Lastly, our last slide on Keeper, we're also subscribed here because, like I said earlier, the growth in its revenues, at least until pre-pandemic, was the highest within this subgroup. And as you can see here, it's also eating into the market share of its peers, specifically that of Emperador. And it's also the main beneficiary of premiumization. The company has not said anything, no? But we believe that the company is likely to announce a major acquisition post follow-on offering. And this will ensure the company's continued growth over the next few years. So again, subscribe on Keeper Holdings. Sorry, my voice has been breaking now, but I seem to have caught something in my throat. But that's it for the presentation, and I'd very much welcome everyone's questions at this point.
Thank you, Sir Nicky. You can have your water break first. While we do, we will check on some of the comments here. Question agad, sir. Eh.
It's okay,
Alright,
sure.
From Bell RV, what companies will benefit the demographic dividend?
As I mentioned earlier, one of our favorite subgroups is the home improvement sector. No? And it's probably the reason why Wilcon has been one of the best performing stocks in the market ever since it listed. But like I said, the price right now is very, very expensive, and we would prefer Home. So that's one, Home. Another company is Keeper Holdings. All Day, even though it's a grocery chain, we believe that it's going to benefit from that demographic dividend because of its mid-premium branding. They're targeting more of the A and B class, which personally I think is smart because they're going to be able to tap into the excess savings that I mentioned earlier. And this mid-premium branding will allow the company to grow its or expand its margins and grow its net income faster than its peers going forward. DNL, also one of our favorites, and it will benefit, like I said earlier, the economic reopening because as people spend more on restaurants, then that will benefit a significant portion of their business.
Thank you. Sir, sabi ni Daddy, yo, uy, na-hype ako dun, Sir Nick, sa All Day.
Not my intention, but and also for full disclosure, we're not a part of the underwriting team for that one. So I'm not building it up because we're involved in it, but I do personally think that it's going to perform well going forward. We have indications that they're going to be able to price it near the top of the range, so that I think tells you something about the demand already for the stock.
Sir, given that what you mentioned, he is also asking, do you think that the price is fair for that for
Yeah.
the IPO?
At if they do price at 80 centavos, then it's going to be at a premium valuation. It's going to be in the high 20s in terms of PE for 2022. However, because of the characteristics and factors that I mentioned earlier, then I think that is a fair price. I think it's a fair price, especially if you're a long-term investor.
Yeah. And so while Sir Nicky, you can have your water break so to clear your throat. But guys, I would like to ask, ano ba yung mga golden nuggets that you have picked up during the talk? We would like to hear that. Hi, Larry, shout out. I also want to shout out Eric of Rampver, Philippines. Yan, ayan na, Erica. Shinout out na kita. All right, so let us know ano ba yung mga napick nyo. It we are actually saving this information to our clients, but today we are sharing it with the public. And if you like what you're hearing, go ahead and open an account with MyTrade. You can just go to our website, click open an account. You just need, if you actually kapag estudyante ka lang, you just need a university ID. You don't need a TIN yet. It's to follow na. And if you are naman regular, like an adult 18 and above and already working, all you need is one primary ID, one secondary ID. We can also receive stock transfers instead of cash deposit. Kasi we understand that some of the things that that prohibits you to transfer is because naipit yung stocks nyo. You don't have to sell your stocks. You just have to transfer. Ilipat nyo lang ng bahay. If you are up to have all of these perks, and it's not just this, we also provide newsletters, we provide Q&A sessions with our analysts, and much more than what we offer in the public. Ayan. So let's go back to the Q&A. Ayan, sir. Okay ka na, sir?
Yeah.
All right. Next.
Nag-stripe sales na.
Okay, pakwa yung sa akin. Nag-endorse. Ayan, next question. From Ronald Galura, how much more upside for GSMI after being one of the best performing stocks the past 5 years? Is it fairly valued or overvalued already, even with lower PE?
Actually has a very low PE. So I wouldn't even say that it's fairly valued. I think it's pretty much undervalued. So in our latest write-up on the stock, we said that it should be worth at least 140 to 150, and that's only going to be at a PE of 9 to 10 times, compared to Emperador, which is trading about 18 or 20 times earnings already. We also like GSMI because it's a pure play on the Filipino consumer. Si Emperador kasi, about 35% of its revenues are already outside of the Philippines. So if you're looking for a pure play on the Filipino consumer, then GSMI should be the one. But if you're looking for outside exposure, then maybe Emperador can also be a stock to that. Of course, it's risky business. Outside of the country is growing very, very fast, and that's the one that's been driving its profits. Specifically, China. They've made significant inroads into China. That's where a lot of their growth is coming from. So hats off actually to Emperador for doing that. I know it's very hard to penetrate China. But personally, I do prefer, like I said, I do prefer companies that have more exposure to the Philippines, more exposure to the Filipino consumer. Because, again, we believe that the country's demographic dividend will play out for a very long time. not even 10 years, but maybe 20 years or even more.
All right. Next question. Jeffrey Briones. Sir Nicky, do you think Smart Box will materialize its price since we are in the last list of coronavirus recovery and for sure the restrictions will not remove? And what is the effect of all the IPO to
I'll tackle the second part of the question of that question first. Now, as I said earlier, the modern retail trade is going to continue to grow. The penetration of modern retail is going to continue to grow over the next 5-10 years. So there's a lot of space for the different players. They're all going to continue to grow. The smart box is not something that is unique to the Philippines. It's something that was introduced in the US, I think, first, no, or maybe in Europe first. But I guess Mary Mart is the first one to adopt it here, and I do think that it's going to make a difference. But since they're only beginning to roll it out, then it's hard to quantify how big of an impact it will actually have. And the fact is that Mary Mart, I think, is valued at in excess of 100 times PE. Actually, I haven't really looked at it for some time because of that factor. It's too expensive to really recommend to clients right now.
All right. Next question from Facebook user. Will the upcoming 2022 election affect inflation and further affect the consumer-related companies? What do you recommend on this?
As we said, the bump in consumers, the bump in GDP from elections has faded over time. So the impact on inflation has probably diminished over time as well. We're more concerned about yung increase in commodity prices, increase in shipping costs, increase in oil prices, increase in LPG prices. Those are the ones that we're more concerned about with regards to inflation. And even if it does contribute, even if the elections does contribute to higher inflation, on the other hand, inflation does put money in the hands of consumers, and that is actually a positive for companies, specifically food and liquor companies.
Okay. From Kenneth Algarne, considering the fact that my trade is bullish on consumer stocks, current situations considered, what factor would change the narrative of US bulls?
If inflation jumps to an uncomfortable level, right now it's 4.8%. We believe that inflation will creep up higher over the next few months because we're coming into the low base of last year. So it's probably going to creep up further, especially with oil prices at $82 per barrel already for Brent. LPG prices up 30% over the past year. So if inflation really goes up further, something like 6%, 7%, then that's going to negatively affect our outlook. Another thing is there isn't a shortage of variants. We all know Delta, but there's also Lambda, there's even Mu. We don't know if there will be other variants that will pop up going forward. So that's also one unknown that could derail our outlook for the consumer sector.
All right. Next, from Lot Chu. Sir Nicky, any advice on LTG?
It's been hit by a lot of negative news lately, but they don't deter from the fact, or investors shouldn't be distracted from the fact that it is the cheapest company within the PSEI at less than 4 times PE. And this is despite the fact that it is the only conglomerate that was able to grow its earnings despite the pandemic. I mean, on an overall basis. The loss that we saw in the second quarter was non-recurring in nature. So if you look at it on a recurring basis, it was still very respectable performance, at least compared to some of its peers. So for me, I'd rather focus on the valuations, focus on the growth, and less on the noise and the distractions surrounding the stock.
All right. So, sir, I'll set aside first the market questions, but I wanna address this question from Aura. Where to start on using my trade? Any user interface guides to recommend? Pretty confusing for someone who's just starting out. All right, go to our channel and look for the my trade platform clinic. We discussed there the major things that you have to set up when you're starting to have a my trade account. Yeah. All right, next question. From XPAC314. Hi, Sir Nicky. We have been talking about discretionary, but just curious, I haven't heard about SSI for a long time, even in short takes. What's the outlook for this company?
I do think that we mentioned SSI
The other
a month or so ago. We downgraded our target because of the effects of the pandemic, and we're neutral on the stock. The issue with SSI is that some of its brands are way up there in terms of price. And a lot of the growth that SSI saw in 2018 and 2019 was because of the influx of POGO workers. Chinese mainlanders are renowned for their affinity for luxury goods, and this is why SSI was on a recovery track from 2018 to 2019. However, the pandemic struck, and most POGOs have left. So it's questionable whether, at least for me, it's questionable right now whether SSI will benefit as much from the economic reopening as compared to its peers. Because if the Chinese workers don't come back, if POGOs don't come back, especially if there's a new administration that's going to come in next year, then I think that's going to significantly delay the company's recovery from this pandemic. So I would rather, even if it is a very discretionary, highly discretionary company, then I would rather concentrate on the others that we do think will benefit from the economy's reopening.
Next is from Eric. Sir Nicky, how do you see PSEI will end 2021?
Right now, kasi the index itself is probably fairly valued. However, in anticipation of a better year next year, we do see the possibility that it will rally towards the end of the year. Well, our target for year end is 7,300, but we wouldn't be surprised if we overshoot this and go up to 7,500 or even 7,600.
Okay. Next question from Nino Cardenas. Hi, Sir Nicky. Will ICT benefit from the increasing demand in the shipping industry?
Uh, Actually, ICT has been much more resilient than we thought. We initially thought that the trade wars, that COVID will crimp volumes, but they recovered pretty quickly. However, in the last quarterly briefing, they said that some of their ports were actually negatively impacted by the shortage in containers. And some shipping companies, again, were negatively affected by the lack of Filipino seafarers in particular. So um, I would say that ICT is not going to benefit as much from the increasing demand in the shipping industry. And that's actually why we said earlier, um, or a few weeks ago, that clients should probably start to take money off the table with regards to ICT. One other thing for ICT is that a lot of their operating currencies depreciated against the dollar in the third quarter, so that might impact third quarter numbers for ICT. We wouldn't be surprised if the company reports flat flat earnings for the quarter, which would be below expectation.
Okay. Next, Liz T. Outlook on Monday.
As I said earlier, we're underweight on Monday. The stock is trading at 34 times PE, which is more than 50% higher compared to its closest peer. I also said that we're not as positive on corn, or not as positive on its alternative meats business as compared to others in the brokering industry. Um, I would personally not be surprised if corn loses its crown as the number one brand in the UK within the next 5 years or so.
All right.
So
Next.
again, we're underweight on Monday.
Okay. So, guys, we prioritize those questions that were connected to the topic a while ago. Moving forward, Dan Gonzaga, Seb, Sir Nicky.
Um, yes, I said earlier that when once people are able to go out more, once it is safe to do so, then travel and leisure will be the space to be. However, I also said earlier that it's harder to achieve true herd immunity than expected. It's harder to achieve it compared to expectations. Vaccination rates are slowing down, so it may take much longer for Cebu Pacific to recover compared to other companies in the market. Um, Local governments are also very hesitant to open up to flights from Manila because of the high number of cases here. So it's really a wait and see for travel stocks, airline stocks, or travel related stocks. Uh, we believe in them long term, but we would rather look at these consumer names that I've mentioned, because we believe that they will recover much faster compared to travel stocks.
Okay, we are now at. It's now 4:49, so we have probably a few more questions. Elmer Zabala, thank you, Sir Nick. Close case, sir. You shared about GDP's high in an election year, first quarter 2022. Does this goes as well as on stocks like ABS and GMA7?
Historically speaking, CABS spikes during the election season. However, as we all know, its franchise was not renewed. So it is not going to be able to air those election ads like before. So I don't think that ABS will significantly benefit this time around. GMA7, on the other hand, should probably do so because it's the only it's the free to air channel that has the widest audience share right now. On the other hand, and this is looking forward maybe 12 months from now, if we do get a new administration or an administration that is not allied with the current one, then the odds that ABS will get a new franchise will increase exponentially. So I don't know if anyone is brave enough to start buying the stock now, but I would suggest that people or clients do pay close attention to the presidential surveys going forward, because si Mayor Isko, for example, has said that he will not prevent the renewal of the franchise ABS, and I think most of the others will not prevent the company from doing so as well. So pay close attention to the presidential surveys. If one candidate stands out and it becomes more likely that ABS will get a new franchise in a new administration, then ABS will probably be a good bet. The risk reward ratio is pretty good at this point because your downside is probably 30-40%, but from current levels it can go back up to maybe the 40s or even 50s, maybe 2 to 3 years from now, if it does get the new franchise next year.
All right. Next question. From Carl. Hi. In one of the short takes last year of my trade, Mrs. G has a book value of 2.5, but now it is at 1.5. Do you think they can recover? Can I ask of your outlook for this company?
It can recover, but probably not as quickly as the others. As I mentioned earlier, people in the lower income classes are scrimping right now, and as we all know, MRSGI's branding or positioning is within that space. So it's being negatively affected by stagnant wages, higher inflation. But once the economy reopens a lot more, and people are able to go to the department stores, which comprises a significant chunk of, or used to comprise a significant chunk of MRSGI's revenues and net income, then the share price should follow as well. But like I said, it's probably going to take a longer time for this stock to recover compared to its peers.
All right. Next question. Sir,
URC.
from Eddie Carillo, URC.
URC is in a way being affected in the same way as Monde. It's affected by higher commodity prices, higher shipping costs, and its margins right now are actually lower compared to previous years. And these factors are going to continue to weigh down on the company's earnings moving forward. In addition, the economic reopening will probably pull down the sales of some of its products like instant noodles, which benefited during the pandemic. On the other hand, its other products like C2 is probably going to benefit from the economic reopening. So it's going to be a mixed bag for URC. And if it's just a mixed bag, then it's 24 times PE for us doesn't warrant a buy. No? We're just neutral on URC at the moment.
Right. Neutral at URC. Next question. From Rolando V, since there is an increase in shipping costs, will logistics companies benefit from it? Or are there other factors which may limit the profits of these logistic companies?
When you talk about logistics companies in the Philippines, they're not the ones who actually transport the shipping containers. When we talk about shipping companies who are benefiting from these higher rates, these are foreign companies mostly, and local companies like Chelsea doesn't benefit. Port operators like ICTSI and ATI don't benefit from it. So it's purely a negative for consumer companies right now.
All right. So probably last two questions. From Johan Sarmiento, with tech and IMI included in your recommendation, what is your outlook for these stocks?
We didn't no, we didn't discuss this in the presentation, but we have been saying that over the long term, for example, for IMI, it's going to benefit from increased adoption of electric vehicles. IMI, through its one of its subsidiaries, Optronics, is well placed to benefit from the increased adoption of electric vehicles. They have invested a lot in research and development. They have invested a lot in new product development that will cater to companies within the electric vehicle industry. For Optronics, for example, last year they were catering only to a handful of electric vehicle companies. In the last presentation of Optronics, they've now engaged with more than a dozen, or actually a dozen and a half electric vehicle companies that are eager to adopt the company's products in their vehicles. Now for tech, it's really trading at a very cheap valuation right now, something similar to LTG. The company is actually benefiting from the shortage in semiconductors, and this has been improving their margins. And we last talked to the company, they said that the outlook continues to be positive in terms of margins, and they believe that they will hit their targets for this year, and that they are looking for even better numbers next year. So we still like these companies. The problem is that there's no following right now. Most investors or traders are concentrated in a number of high-flying stocks that have rallied so much in the past few weeks and months now. The telcos, Converge, si Wilcon, and the rest now. But eventually, we believe that investors will come around and see the stories within these two companies.
All right. So probably last question for Sir Nicky, and then he will part some words to us before he leaves. Okay. The last question is FGen.
FGen, I think we tackled this. We tackled this a day or so ago. Its deletion from the index really was a surprise. Previous precedent was that the PSE would wait for the next regular index review before taking into account the free float of a company. but apparently um, they took the free float um, and immediately deleted FGen, giving notice of only 2 days. But so that's negative for the stock in the very near term. But we still like the company in the long run. No? It's cheap, 7 times, 8 times earnings. It has a large pipeline of new projects that are going to come on stream in a number of years. Not immediately, but they, for example, have that LNG plant that's going to start next year, and this will allow them to build new power plants um, maybe by 2025, 2024. They also have other renewable energy projects that they're working on. These are smaller ones, but they will definitely add value to FGen um, in the next few years. So, given those, we're still positive on the stock.
All right. So, sir, final words that you would want to make them remember, especially at the remaining months of the year.
Mhm. Yeah, I just like to reiterate that the consumer sector is the place to be over the next 12 to 18 months. Um, the economic reopening, higher vaccination rates will allow consumers to go out and spend more. Consumers have a lot of savings, and these savings are concentrated in the AB class, and so you should look for companies that will benefit from this. No? We do prefer, again, highly discretionary companies, and you can look back at the presentation. You can review the presentation to see which companies that we are recommending for next year.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. And we hope to see more of you in the next year for the preparation of 2022.
Yeah,
And
of course.
bye bye. And there you have it. But before we totally leave, and I want to have a little announcement to our My Trade subscribers. I There will be upcoming enhancement in the platform, and I just want to share with you that it's gonna be live anytime soon, probably next week or so. They'll just in the process of upgrading or updating the system over the weekend. So we'll take a look at that and as when. So what is that? So first off, I want to share with you a slide that also would like to, if there are people who are, this is the first time that you have seen my trade and what we are, we just like to share with you what we do offer. All right, so first is we are so grateful with Global Finance for awarding us as the most innovative broker for 2021. This is something that we really didn't expect. In fact, there are a lot of awards that were given, 'di ba, due to ano lang, marketing stint lang. Pero this one, really, we are just amazed by, and we are overwhelmed. And I'm sure that this particular award was given to us because of our urge to, create something creative for the investors, especially those who are just starting in the stock market. And with regards to innovation, and so your total equity value will soon be available in your equities portfolio tab. So it will look like that. Before we used to just have the stock value, right? So it will be like this: your net cash plus your total market value. So given that if you have posted orders or GTC buy orders, it will already be deducted in your net cash, and then you'll be able to see the total equity value right there in the lower left section. Ayan. So it's been months that we have trying to put it up for the as the request of our subscribers. Next is All right, so I'm glad to inform you that we will be able to see our navigator in our MyTrade platform, in our web browser version. So if you go to services, it's under e-withdrawal, it's the navigator tab. So we will post soon. As soon as it is up in the system, we will have it tested over the weekend, and we will let you know once it's already active. If you don't know, the navigator is a tool that we use to make sure that we are picking the right stocks at in the right recommendation of my trade. So it's it if I may share with you also what it looks like. For the first time, I'll be sharing in public the what it looks like. So people, kasi marami nagtatanong sa akin, ano ba yung itsura ng navigator? Because a lot of people na kakilala ko are using that stock. So that particular tool. So I'll share with you the navigator, what it looks like. First is it is a stock picking tool that's being used. So whether you are an active trader or a passive one, if you want to make use of this, it's a creative way of putting up our covered, ayan, all our covered stocks. So this is how it looks like. Yeah, so you can sort it by sector. You can take whatever sector is familiar with you and that you want to invest in, and it's gonna be sorted out. If you notice here, we have light coverage. We also have the index, the indices. Our target is also there. You can screenshot all you want, but you can see that this the stocks are just a demo. So you'll just see like inimbento lang namin for the sake of showing you guys. So you can see here the sectors. It's sortable. You can sort it all in the buy rating. And this will be made available in our services tab. Moving forward, we will let you know once it's active. And if this is a post-pandemic portfolio or our top picks, also rated and based on the number of upside. If you take a look at the right at this part, the S1 which is the support. So it's a combination of fundamental and technical filter. There's a support 1 and support 2. There's resistance 1 and resistance 2. All right. So how can you make use of this? You can actually make use of this, like if you want to time a certain stock, if you are a trader, an active trader, you can just sort those who are in the buy rating, just in case that, or in the hold rating, para alam mo kung yung papasukan mo ba kapasok-pasok or ka-trade-trade yon. So you have to you can also sort all those that are not rated like on a sell or a hold, and just retain all of those that in a buy rating. Yan. So currently they are yes, napapawaw si Jeff. Currently our subscribers are receiving this on a weekly basis, tagged with a newsletter about different tips for being an investor or a trader. But moving forward, we will send this. We will have this available in our web browser platform. And just let us know if you still want to continue receiving those newsletters that comes with it. We will continue that. All right. So these are just one of the things that we can offer. All right. So yan. Moving forward with our inconvenience talaga is really important for our users. And you try it for yourself. Wag niyong don't base it in just me talking here, but it's really good if you see it firsthand. All right. So another thing that I want to share with you is our Facebook groups. We have here, asan na ba yun? Konting-konti. So we have 2 groups. If you are a member already of MyTrade, you probably know about this. We are actually live in our Facebook group, which is MyTrade Map and the MyTrade community. Our community is the Traders Hub, wherein our fellow traders are contributing or sharing thoughts from time to time from their co-traders. So yeah, it's just a free-flowing conversation. We put announcements there if there are things that we need you to notice, especially if there are alerts. Like in March, there's another a product that we have, which is very promising too to our new those who are new in the market. You should try March. And when Sir Rex was talking about diversification, actually you can use both the Navigator and Marge in a different perspective, since the Navigator is for the regular trading, and Marge is another account that you can have wherein you receive a monthly playlist. Ito, at nakalagay na dito, pre-selected na siya. This is a concentrated portfolio for those subscribers that would just like to, this is My Trade Affordable Retirement Guide, wherein you will just put in the money, just like what Sir Rex was saying a while ago, na pang matagalan na yun, 3 to 5 year horizon, and you're just building it while you're learning to trade in another account. Ayan. So, a lot of things are gonna happen soon, and we want to end this year really with a good cheer for our subscribers, and that there is more to come. And with that, we want to thank everyone for staying with us this afternoon, and we hope that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. There, and you will see the different talks that Sir Nicky had. We also had previous shows that we interviewed those chairman and presidents of the listed companies, and I'm sure gusto niyong makita yon. We even interviewed the COO of PSE. Ayan. So ayan, okay. Yeah, just it's at My Trade PH. So look for it. You can subscribe and you will see all of our past streams. Yeah, and you can replay this. We know that when Sir Nicky talks, kailangan nating i-replay at just take note, because I personally do that. So please share this with your family members if you want that kind of quality of reports to receive on a daily basis. Madali lang yan. Just subscribe to My Trade. And with that, all we need for you to have is a better tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.